touching on a couple of things that were shared in here, and we're just about to dive into to start. Interested in attachment theory, beautiful. Yeah, how grief overlays old wounds. That's beautiful, Kimberly. So true. Member of PDS for 5 years. Hi, Lynette. Nice to see you. How are you? Would love to help others now. That's amazing. Get my say. Beautiful. Shruti, I'm 58 and my life made no sense until I started listening to your podcast. I want to do your 3 month program to heal my subconscious patterns and help all my clients do the same. Amazing. I'm a lawyer turned coach. You know what's so interesting? We have so many lawyers in here that end up doing this program. I don't know what it is. Lawyers love this stuff. There's something there. I think honestly, because a lot of you get like the emotional side, but you get the really analytical side of the content too. It kind of balances both worlds. You're a yoga teacher, health coach, executive coach, and working with a dating coach. All clients could benefit from IIT. I love that. That's beautiful. DA here, loving the work and seeing results. Wonderful, Faith. Good for you. Welcome. Here to learn about the coaching. So many people run on autopilot. Yes, love that word because it is so accurate and true. And with attachment theory tools, we can grow towards choosing our behavior 100%. Phoebe says attachment theory validated everything for me when I found PDS a year ago. It changed a lot for me in the best way. I want to learn more and share with others. Beautiful. That's wonderful. Svetlana says, Dear Thais, your work has helped me heal my relationship wounds and finally understand relationship dynamics. Now I want to become a relationship coach and help others to create long lasting and fulfilling relationships. That's beautiful. And I just want to say something here, for all of these wonderful, beautiful shares that I'm just honored to hear. And it's so nice to sort of get to know each of you by name and share here. You also owe yourself a lot of credit because I'm putting some tools out here that I know are very meaningful and impactful, and I've seen them do really amazing things. But at the end of the day, they're just tools unless somebody takes them and does the work. So for every person who's seen the growth and the healing and the transformation, you owe yourself a little bit of credit too, because you're the ones applying them, right? And actually getting to the bottom of these things. So just kudos to everybody who's sharing all these amazing shares about all the transformation in their lives. And it's a huge representation of you for showing up that way too. To help myself help people outside here to heal and be happy with themselves. Beautiful, Penanaya. And you're welcome, Katie. I'm so glad that that was helpful for you in terms of a share, wanting to bring this work to help parents connect more with their children and deepen their connection and understanding of their children's behavior. I love that. I think that's so beautiful because honestly, as parents learn these things, it creates shifts and changes in next generations of children. And for any of you who grew up in an insecurely attached way, because there was probably a lot of chaos or challenges around you in terms of the way you learn to attach to other people. What you'll generally see is that in that actual attachment and connection and chaos, it wasn't easy as a kid, right? And so to know that you could prevent other kids from having to go through what maybe you went through, is a beautiful thing. So for everybody who's filing in, welcome. We will totally get started now. I just wanted to say hi to everybody first. I jumped on a few minutes early to just connect and say hi to anybody who's here. So first of all, I am so excited that you're here. Welcome to our relationship coaching masterclass. And if you don't know much about me, my name is Thais Gibson. I'm the founder of it's actually called the Gibson Integrated Attachment Theory Program was the trademark name, but we call it IAT, Integrated Attachment Theory. And a lot of you shared already what brought you here, but anybody who hasn't and feels called to do so, I'd love to hear what brought you here. And I see a lot of these same types of dynamics of attendees to the masterclass is usually you grew up in some sort of way where you were insecurely attached or you went through a lot of relationship challenges or maybe just confusion, just felt stuck a lot and wondered like, hey, relationships are such a big aspect of life. They show up in my friendships, in the workplace, romantically, with kids, with family members. Like they really, there's an old saying that the quality of our lives is largely determined by the quality of our relationships. And if you've ever felt stuck and then, gotten your hands on some of the tools from the personal development school or some of the work we put out into the world and seen a lot of change, if you're anything like me, as soon as you see something that's beneficial or meaningful, you want to share it with everybody. And I find that tends to be the types of personalities that join here for the classes is you've seen some profound shifts or changes and you're like, wow, I want to be a part of sharing this with more people in my life and really making that impact. So today we are going to cover not just how to build a thriving business and some of what that actually entails, if that's something that you're interested in, but Most importantly, you'll learn about true contribution. Okay, so things that bring like meaning and fulfillment to the lives of people, because I don't think there's anything much more beautiful than seeing other people really heal and grow. And so, what we'll really cover here today is how to become a high impact relationship coach that clients like can't wait to work with, and so that you can build a wait list. But more importantly, or most importantly, the actual secret here to making real transformation happen, because I truly believe that when you show up and you do a really good job at working with people, first of all, you get referrals from everywhere. Okay. Second of all, for sure, there's actually systems you can put into your business so that people come to work with you rather than you ever having to like pick up the phone and cold call random strangers, right? Instead, it'll be that you have systems that drive people towards you. And that is a very easy thing to do if you're just educated on it. But what we're going to dive into here today is, first of all, how integrated attachment theory works, why it works so effectively, what the actual secret is to success. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the perks and even the cons, the challenges of being a relationship coach. I'll tell you how it is, the good, the bad, and everything in between. There's mostly, honestly, incredible, really beautiful things, but there's some challenges too, that we'll talk about with boundaries and things like that. We'll talk about how to make it in this booming industry, okay, and what some really important things are that you need to cover. And then we'll talk about some cool success stories and really why anyone anywhere can do this, okay? Now, at the end of this, if you stay till the very end of this masterclass, you will also walk away with a powerful IAT tool. So we'll share a first tool that will help you discover the limiting beliefs, or potentially your future clients, the limiting beliefs that are stopping them from reaching their full potential. It's actually a tool from the program, but it's just one of those really powerful tools that essentially helps you make subconscious conditioning conscious. We can become aware of it using this tool. And then you'll learn a lot about how that also plugs into reprogramming, rewiring some of these things. And of course, we will cover today as well the itinerary, what you'll actually learn in the integrated attachment theory program, if that's something that you're interested in. And last but not least, if you do decide that that's something you're interested in, we have a discount code available for people, just only people who are here for this webinar specifically. So at the end of the webinar, I will share that with you as well if you're interested. So many of you already shared what brought you here today, but I want to take a moment and just ask you if you could wave a magic wand, okay, in theory, and I know this is a silly question in a sense, but truly asking this question just helps you cut out the noise sometimes of everybody else's opinions or your fears of things working or not working. If you could wave a magic wand and you could make all the money you wanted to and have all the security, how would you spend your life? Okay, what would you spend your time doing? And what is important to you? Would you want to spend your time coaching people and helping people transform and know that you are making an impact? Would you, if you could sort of set up your ideal life, would you be working from home? Or maybe you'd be a digital nomad, working from your computer, seeing clients online and traveling around simultaneously, having inspiring conversations on a daily basis. Is that something that you can envision for yourself? And what are your variations to that? I'm so curious. Would you, there we go. We have a lot of this. Working abroad while traveling. Beautiful. Yes, yes, yes. All of those. Beautiful. I love that. Always loved the field of psychology and attachment theory. It's the only thing that makes sense in regard to personal relationships. It sure makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I think relationships are so much more tricky when we don't know about this stuff. I always give people the analogy that your attachment style is sort of synonymous or analogous in a way to if you're sitting down to play a board game with somebody and yet you have a different set of rules for how the board game's supposed to go. Like I have the rules for Monopoly and you have the rules for Scrabble. And it's like no matter how much we want to have a fun time playing the board game, there's going to be a lot of unnecessary friction and confusion, right? Because we're going to have different rules for how the game's supposed to go. And, by that same token, your attachment style is the subconscious set of conditioned rules that you've learned about how to give and receive love. And so when somebody has a different set of subconscious rules for how to do this, it causes all of this unnecessary friction and confusion, even if we really love and care about the person and we want to do right by them. There's just all of this room for confusion. So it really cuts through a lot of that noise. All that you have mentioned, beautiful Penanaya. What else do we have here? Come from social work background and feel taking this can help me help others. That's beautiful. Yeah. And we're really going to cover here today probably the most important reason that this is impactful and what I believe to be the number one ingredient to true transformation. Like that without this, it's really hard to create changes. So we're going to get into that in just a few minutes here. Drinking tea with people to have chats with to help them ease their life. That would be my dream life combined with inspirational art, preferably working from home or cozy places. I love that. That's beautiful. I love how detailed you were and how clear that is for you. Digital nomad, I love it. I want to connect with moms and dads, teaching them attachment to their children and have meaningful connections with people. Amazing. Hi, C. Working with families virtually from my tiny house in the woods, by my garden, or traveling and jumping in waterfalls. This is beautiful. I'm doing group transformations and retreats, constants. We have so many people out of our IIT cohorts that go that path, that do retreats, that do couples retreats, group coaching. We actually cover that in Business Week. I'll get into all this stuff in just a second, um, but we have a whole section of IT that's just about formatting, like how to do coaching in different formats. And so that's amazing. That's so cool to hear. It's a great fit. Yes, to all you said, it feels like a calling, but I chose the corporate route, but now I'm ready to make the change to what I feel passionate about. You know what I love about that though, Mark, is that sometimes you start in the corporate route, and we've seen this with a lot of people in our cohorts too, is some people actually then leverage all those corporate connections to build their business really effectively. And a lot of people actually take, and again, I'm like kind of jumping ahead, but a lot of people actually take IAT and then they use it for helping people work through attachment styles in the workplace. Because a lot of it's like, what are your limiting beliefs? What are your needs? Boundaries work to prevent burnout, communication work. Like there's these key pillars that are really useful. And we've seen a lot of people go in and do corporate presentations for corporations, and then out of that get it's like essentially a funnel built out of working with corporate clients and then doing some of the personal relationship work outside of work too. So very cool stuff. Anyways, okay, I'm going to stay focused on the the masterclass itself, but just so many amazing shares. I could sit here and read them all day. So let me just explain first and foremost what IIT is. Okay, so this is a copyrighted, trademarked approach to literally rewiring your patterns in relationships. And integrated attachment theory itself was designed after myself personally. I spent a decade researching and working in private practice, seeing more than 40 clients a week for the vast majority of it. And the goal is for us to first be able to identify somebody's attachment style and then change it. And this creates profound breakthroughs in our personal lives. But here is why integrated attachment theory is different from traditional attachment theory. Okay. So traditional attachment theory told us, and it was the work of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth out of Cambridge University, very well studied. Hey, there are four major attachment styles. Okay. And these attachment styles determine often the temperament of your children. What wasn't discussed nearly enough was then how this affects your adult relationships. The surface was sort of scratched on that, but then it was left at that. And it's like, hold on a second here. We are not born with an attachment style, right? It gets conditioned into us through our experiences in childhood. And so when we understand the principles of neuroscience and how the subconscious mind obtains its conditioning, we can actually recondition our attachment style and reverse engineer what it actually means to be securely attached. So this then allows us to truly change the hand of cards that we were dealt, the card of hands, the hand of cards that we were dealt if you didn't get a great one. Okay. If you grew up in a household where there was a lot of chaos, where you went through a lot of childhood trauma, or whatever it might be for your future clients, which is more than the majority of people at this point who have those types of dynamics, then we are able to actually rewire these things and change them. Okay. And what makes integrated attachment theory so powerful is that it focuses on your subconscious mind. I'm going to tell you why this really matters. Because first of all, your conscious mind, so your logical, analytical thinking self, is responsible for roughly 3 to 5% of all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions on a daily basis. 95 to 97% is your subconscious mind. And unfortunately, we get a lot of tools out there in the world, in the talk therapy world, that actually, in some cases, rewire our trauma even more because we go back and we relive old experiences. We talk about the same old things, but unless we are reconditioning the patterns there, we may feel very much like our growth is stunted. Okay. And so the subconscious mind is the key to actual transformation. And I want you to see this in your own life for a second. By the way, there's one other really important thing. Your conscious mind also cannot outwill or overpower your subconscious mind. So if you've ever had the experience, right, and you might look at this in your own life, and maybe you said, oh, I have a New Year's resolution. I'm going to quit eating chocolate, or I'm going to go to the gym every day, or I'm going to start that business that I've always wanted. If you have had a New Year's resolution, okay, and maybe you wanted to change an unhealthy habit, stop raising your voice, stop shutting down, stop clinging or texting too much, whatever it might be, and you tell yourself you're going to do it, and then a few days go by and you're back into your old habits yet again, and you have that push-pull dynamic of wondering, why can't I just follow through? That's because you haven't actually engaged your subconscious mind in the goal and in the process of transformation. And so your conscious mind has the idea, here's my goal, here's what I logically want to analyze and create for myself. But unless that goal gets habituated into your subconscious mind, you will get stuck over and over again. And I'm curious how many of you have had that experience before, because the statistic says, yeah, says 88% of people fail their New Year's resolution in the first week. Okay. And so how does this actually, yeah, I have 100% every day, right? And I'm sure we've all been there. I've been there for sure. I was a fearful avoidant attachment style, and I had a lot of unhealthy habits in relationships. But it's because you're trying to essentially control your life with like 3 to 5% of the power, right? And that's why it's so difficult for people to experience real change. And to be honest, there's a lot of information out there circulating about things like attachment theory right now. And while that's great, it's so great that it's becoming more mainstream and it makes it a beautiful place to build a business from. One of my concerns about that is that that's great that people intellectualize. Oh, here I understand attachment theory, I understand my attachment style. But unless they're doing the subconscious work to rewire it, it can actually just cause us to identify with the label. Oh, here's my attachment style. I'm just the anxious one. I'm just the dismissive. I'm just the one that stonewalls. That's why I stonewall. Okay, now I get to always stonewall, right? Or now I get to always cling, and that's why. It's just because I'm anxiously attached. It's like, hold on a second here. If you're seeing those patterns, you're not born with those patterns. Those are your conditions, your conditioning, right? And so we can actually recondition these things when we understand how to do it, okay? And so this doesn't just affect, of course, our attachment style. This can affect all aspects of our life. That sort of battle between our conscious and subconscious mind that's taking place. But once we understand how the subconscious works, we can start to create real transformation, and quite quickly, very efficiently. So in childhood, how this therefore sort of applies and pertains back to our childhood is, in childhood, we are conditioned. Okay, we're all conditioned. And actually, the first 3 years of your life, you obtain the most of your conditioning, followed by ages 3 to 8. And this is because our brain is producing more alpha and theta brain waves during that time, which makes you more suggestible. You're sort of like a sponge. Your subconscious mind is taking in all of these patterns and programs. But in your early days, okay, and by the way, conditioning doesn't stop after 8. Okay, we're always being conditioned by whatever we are repeatedly exposed to through repetition and emotion. It's why you see that, people rub off on you if you spend a lot of time with them. It's why you see that, how you surround yourself and with whom in your environment is impactful for you, right? Conditioning is always happening, but our deepest conditioning that's most likely to last the longest happens in our early childhood, okay? And in this early period of time, we are all conditioned with subconscious patterns for what to expect when it comes to connection and love. Namely, what your needs are, what your fears are, what expectations you have of other people, what triggers you, and how you communicate, and even what your relationship to boundaries are. So I want to tell you my own version of this, and I would love, if you want to share yours, I would love to hear yours too. I'm not going to go into like the nitty gritty of all my childhood out of respect to my family, but I'll just give you one random example. Okay. So I was a fearful avoidant attachment style. Here's kind of a smaller story, but you'll really see this painted. It's the story I often share is I remember this very vivid experience where I woke up one morning and it was like a weekend or maybe it was the summer, but I know that I got to sleep in and I came downstairs and I was wearing this little flower nightgown and I came running down the stairs to start my day. And I remember my dad had this really sort of like serious look on his face and he said, I come sit down, I have to tell you something. And I sat there and he said, your mother and I are getting a divorce. And I remember being so sad. You know, I knew my parents fought a lot, but I didn't foresee. I was a young kid. I didn't really think about these things. And I cried and I cried and I was so sad. And we had the conversation. The day went on. I was sad all day and I was worried for quite a few days after. I kept worrying and worrying. And then a few weeks passed and nothing happened. And then a couple months passed and nothing happened. And I'm telling you, I thought about it every day. I was like, where am I going to be living? Who am I living with? Am I going to stay in the same school? And I had all these questions, but I was too young to know how to ask them, right? And time passed. And then about 3 or 4 months later, after nothing happened, another morning came by. And I came downstairs and my dad said to me, we need to have a chat. Your mother and I are getting a divorce. And I cried and I cried and I was so upset all over again. I was kind of waiting for this other shoe to drop. And sure enough, weeks passed, months passed, and they didn't get divorced. And maybe 3 or 4 months later, it happened again and again and again and again and again until there was a catastrophic event that actually caused them to separate when I was about 14 or so. But for literally years and years, my dad every couple months would sit me down and say, your mother and I are divorcing. So guess what I did as an adult? Okay, my first serious relationship, fast forward to my first serious relationship, or as serious as it can be at like 18 or 19. I left home pretty young. I left home at 17. And I was 18 or 19. I lived with somebody, pretty young to live with somebody. Um, and guess what I did? I fought with them all the time, first and foremost. I actually have a memory of thinking, we haven't had a fight in like weeks. There must be something wrong. Because I thought that my conditioning was literally love equals fighting and arguing. And every 3 or 4 months, I would be like, I don't think this is working. I don't think this relationship's working. And I would threaten whether or not the relationship was working. And I would question it and challenge it over and over again. And yeah, threatened to divorce everyone. Hi, iPhone. Is that iPhone from PDS webinars iPhone? I feel like that was a comment that iPhone would make. That always makes us laugh. But literally, that's what I did, right? Always threatened to leave, always threatened to leave. And I always thought, if I'm being really transparent, that like, oh, it's everybody else that's the problem. Until one day, I just was sick of it. I just was like, relationships are way too hard. Like, what's going on here? Is it possible that I'm the problem? Is it possible that maybe there's things happening with me? And when I was brave and courageous enough to actually take an honest look at my life, first of all, I was like, oh my goodness, I am totally doing to people that I'm in relationships with what my childhood was. Like, and I didn't even consciously realize it. I honestly had no idea. And when I was sort of at this really pivotal moment of my life where my life had sort of hit this kind of rock bottom. I was going through a lot of personal challenges. And I happened to be in this psychology class, this university psych class one day, and somebody said to me, your conscious mind can't outwill or overpower your subconscious mind. And I just remember that being like this earth-shattering moment. Like if you ever have those pivotal moments in your life where you know that like everything was just going to change. And it was like, I need to learn everything I can about the subconscious mind. Like, why aren't more people talking about this? And that's when I went on to learn, hey, 95 to 97% of all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, actions, patterns, and relationships, and in general, are literally the result of your subconscious conditioning. So all of the things that we are conditioned with in our own early experiences, we are very likely to have on repeat in various forms. So I became obsessed with this. I was like, why is nobody else talking about this? Why am I an undergrad at the time in psychology and nobody's even talking about the subconscious mind in the entire time that I'm there? And so I did my first year-long certification in hypnotherapy, and then proceeded to do over 13 certifications in neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, trauma-informed coaching, shadow work, just so many things. Really, really dug deep into a lot of this stuff. And what was really what's exciting, honestly, about this program, by the way, is that you will learn tools from all of those different frameworks. So it's almost like you'll get a whole bunch of certifications in one where you'll understand, the subconscious mind and neurogenesis, neuroplasticity from the hypnosis point of view and suggestibility. You'll learn about neurolinguistic programming. You'll learn the best tools from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, except how to drive them to the subconscious mind so that they're more impactful. You'll learn somatic experiencing and body work. And you'll learn just so many different aspects within the actual program itself. But um, this went on to me being like, how come nobody's talking about this? And I was so excited to tell everybody about this, sort of like I was mentioning when you guys first came in. I was telling everybody, all of my friends, but no, none of my friends when I'm like 21 years old at the time wanted to talk about this. They wanted to talk about partying and God knows what else. And I remember having this one friend, and he said to me one day, he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about have you ever thought about talking to people about this who are actually really interested in it?" And I remember being like, "Oh, okay, cue taken. Like, I understand what's going on here." And realizing that, like, I'm trying to tell everybody about this because I'm so excited, but like my friends aren't interested. And so maybe I should talk to people who are actually interested instead of spieling at people all the time from my soapbox. And that led me to while I was still like in school and doing all this education, I was like, I'm going to start doing free workshops. And so I started renting library space and giving free workshops to people. And these workshops went from like 10 or 12 people, my first one. And within a very short period of time, there was 150 people at a workshop. And I just remember like all the chairs and just sitting there being like, whoa, this is like a little intimidating. And just did a lot of public speaking and sharing, which helped me grow my practice, and then had a 2-year wait list for my practice very quickly and was like, hold on, this isn't really sustainable. Actually operated like that for quite a few years before realizing I'm going to put content online for the clients who are waiting on the wait list. And that accidentally grew a YouTube channel. And I think to date, we have like 60 million views on YouTube and not sure how many more on Instagram, but have been really blessed to do podcasts and sort of share the stage with people like Mel Robbins or Ed Milet or Lisa Bilyeu, and then wrote 2 books on this topic and created the personal development school. So all of that to say, okay, a lot of this stuff is super transformative, and I'm so grateful and honored that it like hits home and lands for people. But this entire time, people constantly have asked me for one-to-one coaching. And there's a lot of people like you guys, right? The people who are here today on this webinar who are self-starters, who do their own research, who are like amazing at like finding things like this, right? Because of your own accord and your own research. But that's not everybody. There's also a lot of people that easily get stuck in learned helplessness, right? That aren't, self-healers and self-starters. And there's a huge space for people who really need help and tools, but they need a lot more personalized one-to-one guidance, right? And so I sort of started realizing at a point like there's all these amazing people we have coming into PDS and our programs, and that's fantastic. But I constantly hear of things too, like, hey, my mom needs this, or my brother needs this, or whoever else needs this in my life. People are sharing, but they need one-to-one. They need somebody to really hold their hand through it. And so that's why I built this training. It distills all of the best tools that I used in my practice and use in the personal development school. Literally, no tool left out, like all the best of the best tools in this program, because I sort of realized that if I really wanted to help people at the next level, I had to be able to teach people how to coach, how to help other people at the same time. And so that's where, this sort of program came from. And I just want to touch on a couple of questions here that I saw coming through as well. And then we'll go through some more things. Did I heal before I shared my knowledge? I'll be really honest. I healed so much on 3 of 6 pillars. Okay. So what you'll learn is there's 6 pillars to rewiring your attachment style. The first 3 pillars are your core wounds. Okay, which is like all of your relationship baggage, these fears that you bring. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be trapped. I'm going to be excluded, disliked, rejected, unimportant, all these deep fears that we carry. There's like 18 to 20 major ones. You'll learn how to rewire those, by the way, with your clients, which is like some of the most impactful work you'll do. Because imagine that you have these core wounds that are ruining your life. These are the things that ruin your relationships and are the biggest saboteurs. And imagine that you can get rid of them, right? Which is a very easy possible thing to do with just a little bit of consistency. Okay. And it's one of the biggest things that we teach. It's one of the 6 pillars we teach in this program, how to actually leverage neuroscience to rewire these things so that somebody's not constantly fearing abandonment or on high alert for suspicion because they're fearing betrayal or fearing being trapped. So you can get rid of all that stuff. Really healed that pillar of my life. Really learned what my needs were as a person and how to meet them. It's a big part of how we self-soothe, and we can condition that into the subconscious mind. Crush that. Did a lot of nervous system regulation work, which is the somatic work you'll learn in this program. So I got really regulated on my own. And that's where I was like, oh my gosh, the subconscious mind telling everybody. But the truth of the matter is that I started my practice. It grew so fast. And I didn't realize until I was actually in a relationship after working in my practice for a couple years, um, until I was in a new relationship with who's now my husband that I've been together for over 10 years with. But I didn't realize that there was a second part of this missing, which is the boundaries work. Okay. So I'll be honest, like I actually really needed to work on boundaries when I started working with clients. I was seeing way too many people late at night. I kept thinking, I'm so healed. I've healed so much and they're in pain. So I'm going to take them at 9 o'clock on Friday evening. No problem. And so I had some boundaries work to do, communication work to do. These are our next 3 pillars of healing and becoming securely attached. And behavioral work to do. So that's how we cope, right? Sometimes we cope. I did a lot of that work, honestly, probably before I saw clients, but boundaries and communication were the big ones. And I actually really had to learn, like in the communication, how to be vulnerable. Like it was a big part of that next layer of growth I had. I didn't even realize until I moved in with my husband. And we've been dating for like a year and a half. And I realized how hard it was for me to just open up and say what was affecting me if something bothered me. And it would come out as deactivating a little bit, right? Like pushing away. So while I wasn't as triggered as I was in the past, right? Because I had these core wounds, I wasn't communicating my needs. And so then when my needs weren't met, I would start just sort of pulling away, not in the fearful avoidant way that I used to at the time, but that's actually where the next set of pillars of attachment theory were born. Where, hold on a second here. It's not just, and what I had experienced is I was like, oh my God, I'm so at peace on my own. And I'd never felt peace. Like I didn't have any peace in childhood. I didn't feel like peace as an adult, early adult at all. And when I did all this work, part of what was why I was sharing it with anybody who would listen is like, I was like, I have peace. Um, and, and so what happened is then got into a relationship and I was like, wait, I was so peaceful on my own. Now things are kind of getting under my skin and irritating me and bothering me. And that's when I learned, hold on. I don't have great boundaries. I'm not communicating my needs. I'm great at meeting them myself, but not communicating them vulnerably. And that's leading to deactivating behaviors, right? And those are all things that we can rewire at the subconscious level so they become your new set point. And if you look at those 6 pillars that I just touched on, less core wounds, aka less relationship baggage, knowing and being able to meet your own needs to self-soothe, having a regulated nervous system, okay, the internal pieces. Then the next 3, communicating your needs, having healthy boundaries, and having healthy coping behaviors like wanting to talk through things, not shoving things under the rug. Guess what those 6 pillars come from? Securely attached people do all those 6 things real well, right? So we are reverse engineering how securely attached people are modeled their behavior, but we are not, and I can never stress this enough, we are not just intellectualizing these concepts. We are rewiring, okay? You're not born with these patterns, they get wired into you. You can rewire them, leveraging the understanding of neuroscience and the subconscious mind, which is like basically so much of what the actual program covers, okay? Is this making sense to you guys so far, just in terms of what this is all about? Okay, beautiful. So those are your 6 pillars. So did I heal before I shared my knowledge? A lot, but was I in this really like healed, completely stable place all the time? No. And that came with those next three pillars. And I'll be honest too, because a lot of people ask this, I would, if I had to work with somebody, okay, like if we were going to hire another person at PDS, for example, 100 out of 100 times, I would pick the person who's the wounded healer, who's been through this stuff first, and actually applied the tools and done the work on themselves, even if they're imperfect, right? As we all are, over somebody who came up securely attached and did a lot of reading through a textbook or took a program. Because the nuance of the wounded healer, the empathy, the compassion, the depth of understanding is just different. So for anybody who's like, oh no, I have to be perfect in order to do this work, I completely disagree. That wasn't my experience. But you want to be in a place where you're able to actually show up for these things. Can your core wounds really be eradicated? 100%. Okay. And I'll just speak personally, but we've seen tens of thousands of people come through this program. We have like a 99.7% NPS score, like satisfaction score. People have come and done the content in PDS. And of course, I saw it all the time with clients too. Um, but not only can your core wounds change and really be healed, but the impact of it, like when I was a fearful avoidant, and I'll speak for myself, I spent every day of my life either being triggered about something, arguing with somebody that I was triggered because of something that happened, or recovering from the fact that I had had a disagreement that triggered me and then I like drank too much wine or did God knows what to cope. And so all of the time, my mental, emotional real estate was filled up by all this stuff, right? And when you reprogram your core wounds, because your core wounds are actually what sponsor your behaviors and how you cope and all these things that follow, you get so much, not just peace and space back in your mind, but real estate back in your mind to focus on like creating and connecting and designing your life and doing the things you want to do. And so not only will that change, but it will have this massive ripple out effect for the long haul. Okay. So, yes, 100%. Do you have to be a psychologist or have a degree in the field in order to be a coach? No, absolutely not. And our program is not just, you don't just get certified through us, you also get accredited, which is sort of that gold standard of coaching. And the whole program is designed in a coaching format. So you don't have to go back and relive old traumas and go back into like what happened at 4 years old. No, I actually think that that's sometimes a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. We don't need context for anything. We just need to know these wounds are here now, how to rewire them now, and it has a massive healing impact on the past. Okay, so I'll tell you one more story and then I'll go into the itinerary and stuff here. But I'll give you an example of this, okay, from the coaching perspective. So when I feel like I'm just telling you guys my whole life here today. I normally don't tell so many personal stories, but the questions are coming this way, so I hope you don't mind. I had something happen to me when I was a kid, and it was this peak kind of traumatic experience, this thing I really carried with me for a long time. And when I would date people, I would think, okay, once if I'm in a serious relationship or something, maybe I'll tell the person, right? So I told like three people I dated in three serious relationships. The first two times I told this story, and I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty because we'd be here forever, but I remember telling the story and I remember feeling like my heart was just like pounding, pounding. And I remember feeling like I would like kind of break into a little bit of an instant sweat and get all nervous and my voice was kind of shaky and my hands were kind of shaky and I'd be telling this like, event that happened to me as a kid. And then I did a lot of core wound work and a lot of healing. And then I actually changed a lot of those core wounds. Okay. And I remember telling my now husband this story when we were dating and telling the story and sitting there as I'm telling the story, being like, why am I not shaking? Why is my heart not beating? Why am I not having this like response that I always have in the past when I would do this stuff? And I realized it was because I had done so much core wound work that all of the ideas I carried from the traumatic event, that I'm trapped and I'm unsafe and I'm, shameful, all these things that I was carrying from that actual event, right? I had worked on and worked through. And so what that led to is that because I no longer believed those things at a subconscious level, those core wounds were not present in my subconscious any longer after rewiring them, that event just didn't have that power over me any longer. And you have to ask yourself, if we're carrying trauma from childhood, from way back, attachment trauma, how is it possible that maybe you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s And you still have the trauma still affecting you from all that time before. It's because it still lives in core wounds in your subconscious mind. And when you rewire those core wounds, and those are no longer alive, you don't believe those things about yourself because of the traumatic event any longer, that trauma feels like somebody else's distant story. It's like this awareness that that happened, but it's not alive in you in the same way. Okay. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. And great shares, great questions. Um, yeah, thanks for sharing this. PDS changed my life in the first 2 months. I quit smoking, lost 30 pounds, bought my own car, and stopped suffering over a terrible relationship. This stuff is so transformative. I can't wait to share it with others. That's because you plugged in the work, right? You plugged into the work, Rebecca. It's a beautiful share, but I just thank you for sharing that as being a PDS student. But truly, by engaging your subconscious mind, transformation happens. And power to you for all of that. So congrats to you, Rebecca. Okay, so let's go back. I digress. So that's integrated attachment theory. We take the four attachment styles. You actually learn the pillars for each attachment style, each attachment style's core wounds, each attachment style's unique needs, because they literally fit perfectly into these categories per attachment style. So, for example, anxious attachment styles, their core wounds are more centered around being abandoned, rejected, alone, disliked, excluded. Versus you'll see dismissive avoidance are more centered around being trapped, helpless, powerless, weak if they open up, shameful or defective if they open up. So you'll see different core wounds, right? And so we go through those major pillars. We rewire core wounds, aka relationship baggage or attachment baggage. We get each person to learn their own needs because most people have no idea what their needs are in relationships, let alone in relationship to self, and show up to meet them in themselves first because it's a huge part of self-soothing. Then we learn how to actually rewire our nervous system function so people are not constantly in fight or flight because all insecure attachment styles spend far too much time in what's called sympathetic nervous system, aka fight or flight mode. And then you actually learn how to go out into the world now that you've done a lot of inner healing personally, communicate those needs to others in ways that will actually get those needs met, be able to have healthy boundaries in relationships and be able to rewire unhealthy coping mechanisms or behaviors. Okay, those quote unquote bad habits that we have. They're just coping mechanisms from different functions that you've adopted over time. That may sound like a lot right now. Oh my gosh, 6 pillars, rewiring them at the subconscious level. It is simplified and streamlined into this program where A, everybody will know it like the back of their hand at the end of the program. And B, you will be empowered to be a phenomenal teacher of this to other people. Okay. So we will go through every single worksheet, and the program is all lined and set up to literally be like, this is how you ask the question. Here's how you give examples. Here's how you now answer to the response. Like everything is so streamlined in the materials that like it makes it so simple to be really effective at this in a short period of time. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that like no matter what, everybody after this program feels so good at this so easily. And we do a lot of um, you know, checkpoints and practicing the tools and quizzing throughout it so that everybody leaves the program being like fully ready to go. Where I'm in the middle of a cohort now, and I was teaching it last Wednesday, and it's we're on week, what week are we on? Week 7, week 8, of 12. And so many people are like, I'm seeing practice clients already. I'm doing this. I had this breakthrough here. I had this breakthrough here. Like, you're gonna really, really know the tools. Okay. So um, let me tell you quick what it looks like to actually be a coach, okay? Because I'll tell you the good and the bad. Um, the good is really good. It's beautiful. It's first of all, if you're somebody who cares about meaning and significance, like there's so much meaning from like you get to show up and contribute, and there's like an impact piece, right? That you feel like your heart gets to sing a little bit because you get to really feel like you're supporting people and making an impact in a beautiful way. You're learning all the time. You're learning from people, you're emotionally connecting to people. You get to see this really cool transformation process happen, which I think there's something sacred and really beautiful about. That there just aren't really words for. It's something you have to like kind of live through the experience and see and feel. And it's just such a beautiful thing. So you get the meaning and you get the fulfillment. It's a great career in terms of abundance, right? Like usually most people's starting rate is $150 a session. People generally see about 20 clients a week. If they're working full time with clients, that can be a little bit higher. You don't want to go too high. But there's also a lot of other opportunity for retreats, for career coaching, for corporate presentations, for all these different group coaching formats, things that you can do that we'll teach about in Business Week of the program. And I'll tell you about the itinerary in just a moment. Um, and you will build lifelong relationships with people, like, your clients you'll see. I always say, like, your job, you want to be you're doing a good job at this when your clients don't need you anymore. And that's the whole way we set up the sessions. And so that, like, literally they don't need you anymore. And some people get scared. What if then I don't have clients? No, no, no. When your clients don't need you anymore, they will refer you to everybody they know. Okay. Trust me. That's the best way to operate from a business perspective. Okay. So from that perspective, you're really going to see, that, but then you'll have clients, like, I still to this day, years after, just moving fully online to PDS and not seeing clients one to one. Years after, I have people still emailing me every week, like, "Hey, I just got married. I just had this." Just it's a beautiful thing to witness and to be a part of. Here's the hard part, okay? When you get your systems in place, and I'll tell you in Business Week of the program how to build a business, how to have funnels set up so that you're driving people to you. You should not ever be doing outreach one to a person. So as you actually set up your systems and really apply them, your challenge is going to be boundaries, not taking on too many clients like I did. And it's going to be really tempting because when you're in a really good place internally and you have all the tools for your own healing and growth, you're going to be like, but I feel great. So why not see the person at 9 o'clock? And you'll have to set boundaries because it is an industry where people can get burnt out if they're not really clear about their boundaries. And you have to make sure that you're not taking your work home with you. Okay. Because sometimes you'll see people when they first come in and they're going through a really hard time and you're going to not like it. If you have a heart for people and you really care about people, that's a tricky thing, right? To know that, oh my gosh, look at what happened in their childhood and now they're suffering over a breakup and it's reminding them of this childhood experience like that. Like, you'll take that on a little bit. So one of the things we cover in the program is how to set healthy emotional boundaries. Okay. It's going to make you successful at this. It's going to be a key ingredient to really thriving at it. And the last thing I would say is that you want to make sure that you are not giving your personal information to people because people will call you at 2 a.m. You want to make sure you're good there. So we'll be really in the boundaries. We'll talk a lot about that in the program, but those are some of the challenges. The other beautiful parts besides the meaning and fulfillment and connection are that you get the freedom and flexibility to work from wherever you want. A lot of parents who are single parents do this and their kids go to daycare and by the time their child is back from daycare, kids are back from daycare, they're already done their work day, right? Like, there's a lot of freedom and flexibility in that. If you're somebody who's a hobbyist or you want to travel or, just all of those things suddenly become possible in this career at the same time. So there's lots of really beautiful parts. I'll also say that we have so many amazing success stories and shares of people who've come through past cohorts. And I'll just share a couple examples of how people use the format in different ways. We have Jennifer Noble, who did her IIT certification and built a really powerful business. She actually did a TED talk on attachment styles and talked about us and the program in it. And it came out, I guess, like a year or so ago now, but she's doing amazing. We have Emily Blaine, who used her relationship coaching certification to build a really powerful retreat-based business where she leads retreats with her spouse and they go from location to location around the world. And that's what they do. They host like 8 retreats or so a year, and that's it. That's literally their entire business because you can, do very, very well doing that. We have Ben Dawson, who I was mentioning earlier, or was thinking in my mind of when we talked about this, and this is a really common thing for people. He uses his relationship coaching certification to help people improve their workplace relationships. And so literally when Mark was saying this, like he speaks at different corporations. Usually to speak at a corporation, they'll pay you $5,000 to come in for half a day. And he'll have like 1 or 2 clients that he sees regularly. So 2 presentations a month he's usually doing. And then out of that, when you get in front of people are like, hey, let's do 1-to-1 sessions. Let's do 2-to-1 sessions. Let's bring in my spouse. So from there, it acts as a funnel. And then he charges high ticket for people coming out of the corporation. So it's just, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And we have a lot of people who come in, build their business, and a lot of people who share that, oh yeah, I'm in this country today, I'm in this country next week, and they just travel around seeing people online. And I saw somebody say as well a second ago, yeah, what's most impactful, is it online or in person? To be perfectly honest, I don't think it makes a big difference. I think that once you get the online, I actually moved my practice right as we were launching PDS to online. So I could stay, I was still sort of closing out working with clients when we started launching PDS. And I was worried. I was like, oh no, going from like being in person to being online, it'll be so different and it'll change everything. And it didn't at all. Once I got comfortable with the camera and the technology, it's easy. And it doesn't make a big difference. Sessions are just as impactful. So I'd say it's really about like how you see yourself wanting to build your business and what you want that to look like. How long do most clients work with the coach? Generally, most clients are working with a coach. It really depends. I'll teach you in the program how to decide how long to work with somebody. So we talk about setting up personalized programs, how to really set that timeline. If somebody's like mostly secure and they're just tiny bit anxiously attached and they just want to work through a few things, maybe you work with somebody for like 16 weeks. And again, we'll cover all that in the program in a lot of detail. But if somebody is like really fearful avoidant, they're going through a lot of chaos, they have like the core wounds and some of the relationship challenges from the anxious and avoidant side, plus their own, then we'll usually streamline those for quite a bit longer. But the biggest thing that you will honestly see, and I would see this all the time, and we hear these same things reported from people leaving the cohorts. People heal. They are, we design the program so that your clients don't need you anymore. They refer you to other people, and then they say, "Can we do some subconscious work in my career? Can we do some subconscious work around my relationship to this thing or that thing in my life?" And they'll end up trying to stick on. That's what I saw far, far too often. It's part of why I put content online, is because I would tell people, yeah, 2 years wait. And then 2 years would come and I'd be having a hard time offloading clients who I knew were fine and didn't need me and were doing great. But people, they like the dopamine hits of the breakthroughs and being able to rewire. And so people, you can also structure your client practice so that you can see enough people and then get a lot of people really healed. And I like to do the deep work, so I avoided doing this, but we have people who do this. Um, and then once everybody's really good, they just do a once a month touch base with you. So just for anything that they're going through, any feedback they need. And so you see a whole bunch of people once a month that are in a great place and it's kind of easy work, but you give them little tweaks and pivots. So you can set up your client practice that way too. So we'll cover a lot of these. And each of the sessions with the clients, John, great question, is usually about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes. I definitely say like try to stick to that as much as you can. If you go over, then it's a little bit longer. Or maybe you meant the IAT sessions, the program sessions is probably what you meant. So I'll tell you all about the itinerary here as well. Okay. I'll tell you the outline of the program and then sort of the market size and what it all looks like. So here's how the 12 weeks works. Okay. First 4 weeks are actually you going through the content and tools yourself, because I am such a big believer that the more you go through them, practice them on yourself, understand your own patterns, the patterns of your friends or family or romantic partners, it just, you get the nuances in such a deep way. And we actually used to, when we first started the program, we just did 8 weeks and then I added on that 4 weeks first, and like just people got so dialed in there. And so we start, it's really fun. You get to look at all your patterns, do all the tools on yourself. You're guided for the first 4 weeks to do that. And then we go into the 8 week intensive. Now that you understand the tools firsthand, applied a lot of them on yourself, specifically around core wounds, needs, and emotional regulation. You'll learn the other three pillars in the 8 week intensive. Then we dive into the actual 8 weeks with me. So the first 4 weeks you'll have with coaches that we have inside PDS who do an amazing job. I've been teaching this program for a while now. And then you'll do the tools with them. Then you join me for the 8 week intensive part of the program. And it is all about the actual tools and applying them with clients. So you'll learn about first the subconscious mind, neuroplasticity, a lot of like suggestibility, things that come from hypnotherapy, but without having to hypnotize people to achieve the same results. You'll learn about neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, how to rewire things, and specifically how to target core wounds. Okay, so that's the first part we'll dive into. Then we will dive into needs. We'll talk about needs assessments, how to actually learn your clients' needs, the needs of their loved ones and relationships, all these different assessments and tools for those things, and then how to, again, rewire and change the relationship we have to our needs, because a lot of people don't know their needs, ignore their needs, put them on the back burner, deflect them, think they're being selfish if they meet them. we'll actually rewire all that stuff. So it comes very naturally to honor and show up for your needs and to self-soothe really well as a result. So you'll learn all the tools for doing that with your clients. Then you'll learn about some nervous system work, some somatic regulation later in the program that will really dive into regulating the nervous system, moving into parasympathetic nervous system, some tools to do that. Again, so that it's actually applicable to the rewiring process, not just the conscious understanding. And then we'll go into rewiring our communication habits and patterns, some really powerful but really simple tools that just like completely transform communication. Because 95% of clients I would see would come in and be like, Thais, nobody listens to me. And honestly, it would just be that they had no communication tools at all. So that will be extremely impactful for your clients. And then we dive into rewiring behaviors, okay, and rewiring relationship to boundaries. And then as we close out the program, we go into Business Week. And Business Week is a lot of content for how to build a business. You have access to all of the content for life. We talk about how to build marketing funnels. We talk about creating high value content offers, how to position your offer in the marketplace, how to build and nurture an email list. We talk about how to create social media content. We talk about how to actually like go through your whole funnel and really build funnels. We talk about how to do Facebook ads, literally anything and everything that you could need to really thrive in your business. We do. And we talk about how to build the systems. And then we talk about how to get clients really, really, really fast, where we have a really short form strategy and then we have a really long form strategy. So a lot of the long form is your social media stuff. It requires consistency across time. We have some amazing short form hacks that get you in front of people that help to really get things moving quick. Okay, so we have all of that. And what's really cool about that stuff, especially from that sort of business point of view, is if you look at this market right now, okay, the global revenue of coaching in 2019 was 2.84 billion. And in 2023, and it's still growing even faster, was 4.56 billion. So it basically doubled or came very close to doubling in a very short period of time. And the market is growing so quickly right now when it comes to relationship coaching. It was like coaching. Now relationship coaching is this becoming this huge booming industry with very little competition because we're early in the game. So this makes it a hotbed for building a thriving business. Anytime you're looking for like to really build something in terms of like a business, you're looking for, is there a big need for it? Okay. And is there very little competition? Okay. If that's the case, like that is it's just the best place to be. Okay. You're sort of riding the wave, right? As it's like coming crescendoing. And what's cool about this is even from the relationship coaching part, if you look at relationship coaching tools out there in the marketplace, attachment styles is one of the most studied, researched bodies of psychology. And then being able to rewire our attachment style at the subconscious level, almost nobody is doing. So you get this like really, really dialed in body of research combined with really powerful cutting edge tools in a marketplace that's absolutely thriving. So, that's a very promising space to be in. Okay. And if you look as well, like roughly 50% of marriages are ending in divorce right now. And kids who come from a divorced home are twice as likely to go through a divorce themselves. And like we talked about earlier, like divorce, unhealthy relationships, fatherless homes, poor communication. These things are so tough on kids. And maybe I'm a little too idealistic, but I love to imagine what life would look like if a lot more children just grew up in loving homes where they had parents who had the proper tools, who actually had the ability to, understand communication and show up in really healthy ways and give those tools to their kids so that they could be securely attached. And how that over time, even if it's just a drop in the bucket in the whole wide world, contributes to a lot of impact in the world, right? And so that's something that I'm always hoping that people will jump on here and do with me. So with all of that being said, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, what if I can't do it? What if this is too hard or too big? The entire program is literally meant to be as streamlined and simplified as possible for you. Okay. I promise you, you will walk away like really getting it. Okay. It's not going to be something and how the actual sessions work. So we do two cohorts. We have a live cohort. Okay. And we have an on-demand cohort. The live are with me. So I hope you joined me. But the live are essentially, we do 12 weeks. as I mentioned, you do the first 4 weeks learning about your patterns. Then we do an 8 week intensive. And that 8 weeks is like learning about all the tools. Each session we say is an hour and a half, but I'll be honest, I always stay for 2 hours. So make sure you mark your calendars for 2 hours. And we, in those 2 hours, take the tools that you learned from the recorded. So you get recorded content each week that's like 2.5 hours long. And then we practice it together in the actual live sessions together. So we go through the tools, we practice them. I do live examples of the tools with the students. Then we do critiqued examples. And we just go through answering any questions that you have. I sort of do a little bit of a quiz, like a fun one in the chat. Not that you're like, you don't get tracked or scored on it. But just like, hey, what do we do in this situation? Okay, this. What do we do in this situation? Just so you really have those frameworks. And then at the end of that 2 hours, you can take a break and you can come back. And then we have you go into breakout rooms and you can stick around for another hour after and go into breakout rooms and practice the tools and do it in a supervised way where we go from room to room, check in, see if you have questions about the tools. So you get a lot of time to actually practice the tools and get them reviewed. You get to see the tools live with me. You get to get your questions answered, and then you get all the content for life about the actual tools and how they work and the program and all the worksheets. And for every tool that you learn, you actually have it set up in a worksheet that's like, do this first, say this. Okay, great. Now do this next, say this. Like everything is so dialed in, so it makes it super streamlined and easy. Okay, so that is the live. So it's set up that way. And then the on demand is for people who can't make the live session. So the next actual live cohort begins on the 24th of July, and it's for that 12-week period. And it starts at 6 p.m. Eastern every week, so every Thursday. And it goes till 8, but then you have the hour of practice after. So you can come and go, but that's optional. I mean, anything is optional. If you ever miss one, it's okay. You get the recorded version if you ever miss a week. And then it goes for that 12-week period. And so 6 till 8 p.m. is really like the time you really want to attend, and then stick around for practice if you want. And for people who can't make that time period, on demand is just all of the recorded content. So you won't get as much like hands-on experience, but it's all recorded and streamlined. And then at the end, for both of the cohorts, whether live or on demand, in order to pass, there's a test. The test is not super, super hard. It's meant to just make sure you have the knowledge that's dialed in. And it's on Thursdays, Olivia. And once you pass the test, you get certified. And then we work with an accrediting body as well, which is sort of the gold standard for coaching. So then you also get accredited. So you get both, best of both worlds. And that's the process. Then you'll be able to start seeing clients. A lot of people start really building out their businesses and seeing clients in the initial stages of like just as they're sort of finishing the program, because the tools really work, and a lot of people are able to go in and apply them really, really effectively and quite early on. So you will feel very equipped to start your business as soon as you're done. So originally the program is $7,000 for the 12 weeks. We do early bird pricing for $29.99, which is more than a 50% discount, and there's an additional $300 off for anybody who attended this webinar. It's available for 48 hours. Okay. So a lot of people ask this, and we have payment plans. So it's actually as little as $289 a month. You can see people get certified and accredited before finishing. So if you're somebody, a lot of people will be like, wait, if I'm on a payment plan for 6 months and I finish the program in 3 months and can I start seeing clients before I finish? Yes, you can. We try to really make it work for people. And then we have the on-demand one, like I said, if you can't make the live, and it's as low as $169 a month for 12 months, and you get an additional $200 off for attending this call as well. So that option is available for 48 hours. Okay. All the links are in the chat for any more information, as well as the freebie, like that cool little tool that you have. So you can jump in there, you can join in. If you have any calls or questions, okay, and you're like, wait, what's going on? You can go to Melanie at Personal Development School. Abby's dancing. I came back to look. I came back and I'm like, oh, I love it. Um, and so you can, if you have any questions, you can jump on with Melanie at personaldevelopmentschool.com. Okay, so she's our head of sales, goes through everything. If you have any questions with her, she is there. And honestly, she like really onboards people. She's always talking to people throughout the cohorts as they're doing stuff. And we have so many resources of just follow-up support. So Thursdays, um, you need clarity on how I'm just going to come in and answer some of these questions. I hope that answers, just the actual questions about the program and structure. I have connection with her tomorrow morning, Jody. Amazing. Um, I need clarity on how long you would be working with clients to see long-term change. You're going to see long-term change. Okay. So our reprogramming tools, so like the actual rewiring tools for your core wounds, your starting point for how to actually rewire a core wound is 21 days. Okay. There's a difference between subconscious and unconscious stored experiences. Unconscious require about 63 days. So that's like on the very long side. That's usually, I don't want to, you'll get into all this in the program. But that's usually if somebody has unconscious experiences. So they were given up for adoption as a child. Things before the age of 3 is usually what gets embedded into the unconscious mind. The subconscious mind, 21 days to rewire. So a lot of people are more centered around the subconscious work that they have to do, with some rare exceptions. You're going to see transformation in pretty big ways, at least for the relationship baggage. Within the first 21 days, you're going to see a lot of momentum. In fact, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I feel like I'm healed," and it's 14 days. Healed of like a core wound that you're working on, right? Trapped or abandoned. They have to keep the 21 days. They have to stick all the way through because that's how long it takes to fire and wire neural pathways that are strong enough to stick. Okay. So there's that, which is really important. But then you'll work on other things. So you'll go from core wounds, then you'll go into needs for another 21 days of rewiring work. Well, you'll do the needs assessments, habits to meet their own needs and self-soothe for 21 days. So you're sort of looking for those 6 pillars at 21 days each. Okay. And for each of the 6 pillars. But each time that you're working on a pillar and somebody's shedding a core wound or starting to meet their needs, like it has profound impact, right? And that's the cool part is, and I'll tell you this too. I worked for a while when I was working in my practice in person on a huge office floor in downtown Toronto that was almost all rented out by wellness professionals. And I would come into work every morning and I would see clients. Every single one of my client appointments would show up like 95% of the time, unless there was actually some like really last minute change. And all of these wellness professionals, they would come talk to me when I was in like the lunch area, like eating, and they'd be like, "You're always coming out and greeting a client and going back in, always coming out and greeting a client and going back in. Like, how come your clients don't ever cancel?" And I honestly think because when people are doing subconscious mind work, they see the breakthroughs pretty efficiently and they're like, "Whoa, this is working." And it keeps them really motivated to keep showing up, which A, makes you have way more of an impact on them. And B, like a lot of people in the wellness space have a lot of client cancellations. It's a big thing. And a lot of people end up being like, "I'm going to charge my clients if they don't show up." I never charged a fee if somebody didn't show up. Like people just wanted to show up. So there's a lot of ways you can structure your business. There's also, we create some personalized programs for your clients. There's a framework for how to do that. There's some really cool, easy ways to really ensure success and impact with people. And as I mentioned earlier, you're kind of getting the best of the best tools from like hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy. Like we're really hybriding a lot of these different approaches, a lot of somatic work. So a lot of certifications that I've done, I've distilled the tools and sort of brought them into a lot of attachment theory frameworks so that you're getting the best of all the worlds at once. So really great question. Yeah, how long do most clients work with their coach? Yeah, so that's exactly it. There's a coaching program that I teach you to offer that's a certain number of sessions. Yes, but by person. So you'll be able to sort of see how anxiously attached somebody is and know how long that you're going to recommend working with them, how fearful avoidant somebody is. And it's going to be different time frames for the different situations. There's definitely not a one size fits all, but there's markers to look for that will help inform you for a lot of those things. And we'll cover those in the program. Great question. Does the content for life include new content after you've completed the course? Yeah, you get to keep every single piece of content for life. I would never be like, "Here's the thing. Okay, we're taking it back." I think that's so funny. But you'll also get to like every single time that you come in and you do we do the sessions together throughout the program. those get recorded and you also get to keep all those. So whenever you want to review back any of them, anything like that, you'll be able to do so. And of course, all of the worksheets as well. Is the accreditation valid in Canada and the US? Absolutely, Chrissy, it is. Um, and C said that wasn't from talking about the actual event, like practice. Oh, this is about something from way earlier. Sorry. um, yes, exactly, Sophie. Hi, Sophie, too. I see some of you guys in PDS a lot, but contrary to popular belief, time does not heal all wounds. It's what we do with said time. I love that you said that as a response. It's absolutely the truth. The truth. Time does not. How many of you have thought time heals old wounds? Or all wounds or whatever that saying is. And then 20 years later, you're in a relationship with somebody who reminds you of your childhood triggers, right? Because subconscious wounds just stay dormant until somebody brings them to the surface and acts as a catalyst for them again until we actually do the rewiring work and really leverage neuroplasticity. Um, does anyone do the on-demand and then later transition to the live certification? Yes, that does happen sometimes. So sometimes people will do the on-demand because they can't make a cohort, but they want to get started, and then later just come in and do the difference. So okay, I did the on-demand. Wait, I can make the cohort. Maybe sometime next year I'll be able to make one, and then you come in and actually upgrade to the live. And you're absolutely able to do that. So great question. And for the on-demand, will these be the recorded live sessions from the live cohort? Yes, so you will get exactly all the same content, but just not the actual in-person sessions, if that makes sense. In person being like on the computer in person, like live together. Now that I work in the online world, this feels like it's in person. So hopefully that makes a whole lot of sense. So if you click those links, if you have any questions, Renee has posted all of those there. If you have follow-up questions or if you want to retain the offer of like the extra $300 discount, the offer for the payment plans, but you're like, wait, I still have follow-up questions. As long as you book a call with Melanie within 48 hours, then you're good. We'll honor it. She'll know. You just let her know you came to this webinar. And then those are all of the links there as well. So in summary, real healing needs to engage the subconscious mind. Okay, otherwise we're just intellectualizing information. Integrated attachment theory covers these 6 pillars of what make a person securely attached versus insecurely attached, how to rewire those pillars, and going through the program, you'll get access to all of those tools, how to build a thriving business, how to actually work in all these different formats, whether it's group coaching, corporate coaching, anything like that. And you'll be really ready to go at the end of 12 weeks. So, congratulations, Phoebe. I'm glad that you're already registering. That's amazing. I couldn't get off from work on time, so you missed a big part of the masterclass. Yes, Adriana, we will send this out via email if you want to copy or you want to refer back to it. So don't worry. And yes, Lou, the online cohort and on demand both give you the same certification and accreditation as long as you pass the test, which again, you'll definitely pass the test. If anybody ever struggles, you can reach out to us and we'll give you some extra support. You have a couple chances to pass it as well. I don't think we've ever had anybody not pass it within their 3 times. Is it possible to network with peers doing the on-demand? Yeah. So yes, absolutely. We have a Facebook group for that. So you'll be able to do that. It also comes to the Facebook group. And networking is a big part of building referral networks. We'll talk about how to build your niche in Business Week, how to target different niches. You'll be able to share what niche you're looking at doing, and I'll give you sort of industry information about where you could pivot or tweak or how to improve that. So all of that will absolutely be covered. That's so exciting, John, to hear that. Wonderful. You'll eventually come into on demand and then the live. Amazing. And just thank you all for being here. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for joining me and chatting and sharing and just sharing a little bit about yourself at the beginning too. It was so nice to just hear people's stories and shares and what brought you here. And I really, really can't wait to see a bunch of you in there and joining in. And congrats to everybody in learning today and just taking any next steps. And yeah, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your evening.